The story begins with a kind-hearted and gentle man named Brad, who lovingly takes care of his stepchildren, always doing his best to motivate and support them in every possible way. The film opens with Brad's past, where he shares that he has always loved children and dreamed of becoming a great father someday. Every morning, he wakes up early to prepare breakfast for his two stepchildren, Dylan and Megan, treating them with warmth and patience. Brad truly adores them and always tries to win their affection, even though Dylan and Megan still don't like him at all, mainly because Brad isn't their biological father. One day, Megan proudly shows Brad a family drawing she made at school, but to his dismay, the picture shows her stabbing Brad in the eye with a knife while keeping her mother far away from him. From that moment, Brad realizes that Megan secretly wishes he would disappear from their lives. Still, Brad doesn't give up on earning their love. He later confides that he can never have children of his own because a dentist once accidentally used a laser on a sensitive part of his body, leaving him infertile. Despite this painful truth, Brad feels grateful because he has a beautiful and youthful wife, Sarah, whom he deeply loves and cherishes. Sarah asks him how the kids are doing, and Brad proudly explains that he already got them ready for school. He even shows her Megan's drawing, and although Sarah feels embarrassed and apologizes, Brad says he's actually happy that at least Megan included him in the family picture. Sarah smiles warmly and tells him that what she loves most about Brad is his ability to find something positive in every situation, no matter how bad it seems. The next day, Sarah leaves for work while Brad comes home early to find Dylan crying in his mother's arms. Concerned, he rushes over, and Sarah tells him she wants to talk privately. Brad feels thrilled, thinking Dylan might finally see him as a real father figure. Excitedly, he sets up a camera to record the special moment, but when Dylan notices and feels uncomfortable, Brad quickly apologizes and turns it off to listen seriously. Dylan opens up about being bullied by some kids at school. Later, Brad tells Sarah how happy he is because, for the first time, Dylan came to him for help, something that makes him feel like a true dad. Sarah suggests that Brad find a way to help Dylan deal with the bullies, and Brad promises he will. Not long after, Megan approaches Brad and shyly asks if he'll dance with her at her school's father function event. Brad is so touched that tears well up in his eyes, and he starts crying from pure joy. Dylan thinks he's overreacting, which leads to a playful argument between them, until Sarah steps in and scolds Megan for being rude. A few days later, the family sits together watching a movie, laughing and looking genuinely happy for once. But suddenly, the phone rings. Dylan quickly picks it up. It's Dusty, the biological father of Dylan and Megan, calling to say he's coming to visit soon. The kids' faces light up with excitement, while Brad and Sarah exchange uneasy glances. Brad talks to Dusty over the phone, trying to sound cheerful, but Sarah warns him not to invite Dusty to stay at their house. Brad disagrees, saying he just wants to make the children happy. The next day, he tells his boss, William, that he's going to pick Dusty up from the airport. William advises against it, hinting that it's a bad idea, but Brad insists on doing it anyway. At the airport, Brad spots a tall, handsome man and hopes that he isn't Dusty. When he approaches and asks, the man denies being Dusty, so Brad waits for hours until nightfall. Tired and disappointed, he finally returns home, only to find a large motorcycle parked outside his house. Sarah tells him Dusty arrived a long time ago. Brad steps inside and is shocked to see that the man from the airport actually was Dusty all along. Brad confronts him about lying, but Dusty casually denies everything and acts innocent. The kids are thrilled to see Dusty's motorcycle and beg for a ride, but since it's late, both parents refuse. That night, Dusty tells the kids a bedtime story. Brad joins in halfway through, and the two end up turning it into a playful competition to see who's the better storyteller and the better dad. Later, Dusty invites Brad outside for a drink. Sarah tries to stop them, but Brad, wanting to be polite, agrees to go. Outside, Dusty notices a treehouse in progress, and Brad proudly explains that he's building it for Dylan. When Brad asks why Dusty suddenly decided to visit, Dusty claims that the kids need a father and that he just wants to help them appreciate how good Brad really is. Brad becomes emotional and believes him, though Sarah remains skeptical and warns that Dusty is just playing mind games. The next morning, Dusty wakes up early and makes breakfast for everyone, giving a little speech about the importance of loving and caring for the people who look after us. Brad thinks Dusty is talking about him, until Dusty suddenly brings in a huge dog and tells the kids to take care of it. Brad protests because the dog is far too big for the house, but the kids insist on keeping it, and Brad eventually gives in. Later, when Sarah is about to leave for work, she finds her car blocked by Dusty's motorcycle. Brad tries to help move it, but the bike suddenly roars to life, crashes into the house, and smashes Brad's car. The house is badly damaged, leaving Brad stuck inside a wall in the process. The next day, Dusty drops the kids off at school and unexpectedly joins Brad at work. Brad's boss, William, is immediately impressed by Dusty's confidence and charm. The two quickly become friends, and Dusty even comes up with a catchy jingle for the company, which William loves and airs on the radio. Brad feels a mix of irritation and jealousy but forces a smile and tries to hide it. Later that evening, when Brad gets home, he hears the same jingle playing on the radio, and to his surprise, the family praises him, thinking it's his voice in the ad. Brad tries to explain, but before he can, Dusty steals the spotlight once again. When Sarah later hires a handyman named Griff to repair the damaged house, Dusty suggests Brad should fire him and do the repairs himself to prove his manliness, which only angers Griff. The kids start noticing the growing tension between the two men. That night, Dusty reads another bedtime story for the children, and Brad joins in as usual. But this time, Dusty makes a cruel joke about Brad's inability to have children, leaving him deeply hurt. When Sarah finds Brad sitting alone afterward, she comforts him tenderly, reminding him that she's known about his condition from the start. She reassures him that she's happy with him just the way he is, because he's a kind, genuine man who truly loves her and the kids. The following day, Brad wakes up determined to do better. He spends quality time with Dylan and Megan, taking them on fun little adventures and making them laugh all day. For a brief moment, everything feels perfect. But Dusty, seeing how close they've become, grows jealous and decides to outshine Brad again. Later that evening, Brad comes home to find that Dusty has rebuilt the treehouse, bigger, taller, and far more impressive than before, and even added a skateboard ramp beside it. The kids are amazed and cheer Dusty on as their hero. Dusty grins and performs a risky skateboard stunt to impress everyone. Brad, unwilling to be outdone, nervously tries to copy him, but accidentally grabs a live wire, gets electrocuted, and faints on the spot, leaving the entire family screaming in shock and Dusty frozen in disbelief. Dusty presses on Brad's chest until he finally regains consciousness, gasping for breath. Dylan immediately gives Dusty a high five with pure excitement, cheering for him like a hero. Sarah, however, remains serious and tells Brad that it's time to ask Dusty to leave the house. Brad nods hesitantly and prepares to talk to him, but before he can, Dylan suddenly runs in crying, saying that some boys pushed him off his bike and laughed at him. Hearing this, Dusty and Brad immediately team up to teach Dylan how to defend himself. At first, Dylan refuses, saying he doesn't want to get into trouble. But Brad motivates him by sharing a personal story about his own childhood, how he once struggled to stand up for himself but learned that confidence matters more than fear. Touched by Brad's sincerity, Dylan finally agrees to start practicing. Later that evening, Dusty tells Sarah about a doctor who can examine Brad and might be able to help them have a baby. The news excites everyone, including Brad, who, for the first time, feels a spark of hope and agrees to visit the doctor. After his meeting at work, Brad heads to the clinic with Sarah and Dusty. The doctor runs several tests and asks them to return the next day for the results. That night, when Brad gets home, he finds everyone gathered around, happily looking through old photo albums filled with pictures of Sarah and Dusty together. Seeing this, Brad feels left out and quietly sits aside. Sarah notices his unease and gently tells everyone it's time for bed. As Dusty reads a bedtime story to the kids, Brad suddenly bursts into the room, angry and frustrated, and ends up shouting at him. The children are stunned by the outburst. Realizing what he's done, Brad storms out, his heart heavy with regret. Dusty follows, trying to talk, but Brad cuts him off and tells him to leave. The next day, they return to the doctor's office for the results. The doctor smiles warmly and announces that they can become parents again. Everyone cheers and hugs the doctor, except Dusty, who forces a smile, clearly unhappy inside. The following morning, Brad arrives at work in an unusually good mood. His boss, William, notices and asks what happened. Brad proudly tells him that he's going to be a father. William congratulates him with a big smile and a firm handshake. Later that day, Brad approaches Dusty to apologize for being rude. He thanks him, saying that it's because of Dusty that he'll soon become a dad. Dusty admits that he genuinely likes Brad and even looks up to him. They share a warm hug, but seconds later, Dusty smirks and tells Brad that he still plans to win his family back. Brad stiffens, angry, and tells Dusty he'll never be able to do that. The next morning, the children wake up to find the entire house beautifully decorated for Christmas, with sparkling lights and piles of colorful presents. They assume Dusty did it, until Brad walks in dressed as Santa Claus, grinning widely. He tells them that this is the first time he's ever been able to spend Christmas with them. Brad gives Sarah a beautiful ring, making her eyes fill with tears of joy. Then he surprises Megan with a small pony waiting outside, leaving her overjoyed. The kids hug him tightly, telling him he's the best dad ever. To celebrate, Brad takes the family to a football game and makes Dusty sit farther away. The kids have a great time, but Sarah gently tells Brad that he's spending too much money. Brad just smiles and tells her to relax and enjoy the day. Suddenly, a coach, who turns out to be Dusty's old friend, invites them to sit in the front row. Dusty takes the kids onto the field, showing off, and Brad becomes furious. He yells that he's been trying so hard to connect with the kids, only for Dusty to ruin everything in one moment. Sarah tries to calm him down, but Brad loses control and starts shouting, upsetting her. She walks off to sit next to Dusty. Drunk and angry, Brad storms onto the field, insults Dusty in front of everyone, and accidentally throws a basketball that knocks two people unconscious. Security rushes in and drags him away as his family watches in shock and embarrassment. Feeling humiliated, Brad leaves the house that night. Everyone is heartbroken. Dusty comforts Sarah, asking her to forgive Brad and promising to take care of everything. Sarah agrees but tells him to live somewhere else for now. She also decides to let Griff, the handyman, go. Days later, Brad is shown sitting alone, staring at Megan's old drawings and missing his family terribly. Meanwhile, Dusty is seen cutting in line at the kids' school drop-off, which annoys one of the staff, hinting that even he's starting to struggle with fatherly responsibilities. William visits Brad and advises him not to give up, warning that the longer he stays away, the closer Dusty will get to his family. Brad sighs sadly, saying that Dusty is their real father and that no matter what he does, he'll never truly replace him. Suddenly, Griff shows up and tells Brad that Dusty is feeling overwhelmed and that Brad needs to come back to help with the kids. At first, Brad refuses, but then, after a moment of reflection, he stands up with determination and agrees to go. Meanwhile, Sarah attends a school event with Megan and Dylan, an event meant for fathers, but Dusty doesn't show up, leaving Megan heartbroken. Sarah tries calling him, but he doesn't answer. Just then, Brad arrives and stops him from leaving. He tells him that Megan really needs her dad there and reminds him how much she's been looking forward to this day. Dusty listens quietly. Then Dusty tells Brad that he doesn't know how to be a real dad and never will. But Brad calmly insists that being a father isn't about being perfect, it's about being there. His sincerity moves Dusty, who finally agrees to come along. He even invites Brad to join them, though Brad hesitates, embarrassed in front of Sarah. Dusty encourages him to apologize and come back to his family. After a moment, Brad nods and follows. When they arrive at the event together, Megan's face lights up with joy. The three of them dance happily, and the crowd claps along. Later, they even help Dylan stand up to the boys who used to bully him, cheering him on with pride. In the final scene, Dusty is shown working as a successful radio host and now married to a woman who has a stepdaughter. Meanwhile, Brad and Sarah have a baby boy, and both families share a cheerful dinner together, laughing and enjoying the evening. But in a funny twist, Dusty's stepdaughter doesn't see him as her real dad, and her biological father turns out to be incredibly handsome and muscular, hinting that the same hilarious rivalry might start all over again, and with that the story ends here.